Hello, today I'm going to be talking about different project management models. The first model that I'm going to talk about is the waterfall model. Some of its characteristics include a sequential approach. Essentially, a water model is where you have a very clear-cut requirement analysis to design, to implementation, to testing. No sections overlap, so you cannot start the design process until you finish the requirement process. Let's talk about some of the waterfall model's strengths. A waterfall model is easy to manage because the work is cut out the work is already predetermined to how it's going to be, so it's easy for everyone to be on the same page of what everyone should be doing. It's predictable, so if you have a strict deadline, waterfall model could be good for you. It's also easy to just get started, since every project that is using the waterfall model has the same process of analyzing requirements to designing to implementing to testing. Now let's look at some of the disadvantages. The issues with the waterfall model are that sometimes it can be very rigid, which doesn't allow for customer input, or let's say the requirements change. That would cause a lot of issues with the waterfall model, since the stages of the model are very rigid. It requires also all of the requirements to be known beforehand. If you only know 70% of the requirements, then it's very hard to get started with the waterfall model. Another issue with the waterfall model are that big projects cause issues due to the large size and uncertainty of a big project. A smaller project which has a clear end goal and a clear amount of time and a small requirement or a small goal that you would like to achieve, the waterfall process is a lot better for that. Alright, now let's move on to the next model that we studied, which is the spiral model. Some of its characteristics include an emphasis, or some of the, it's an iterative model, which means that you keep, you repeat processes. It's broken into little pieces that get repeated. Its main thing is that it goes from requirements to design to implementation to risk analysis, back to requirements, design, implementing, and then risk analysis. So stages get revisited more than once, unlike the waterfall model. And yes, those are this is how it works. You end up doing a spiral because you end up going in circles over and over again. So that's why it's called the spiral process. Some of the strengths are that it has flexibility, unlike the waterfall model. Since you can go through one iteration and then after you do risk analysis and you see what things you need to improve, you do the same thing again, and then you look at risk again with the new additions that were added to the project, and you go again. So there's a lot of flexibility. You can release the product incrementally due to having functionality, maybe on one spin, one loop around the circle. You already have functionality, so it allows you to release the product in pieces rather than having to wait for the entire thing to finish. And it's better for large projects. Let's look at some of the disadvantages. The spiral process can be disadvantageous due to the fact that it can be time consuming. Having to go in circles over and over again could use up a lot of time. It's also hard to notice or how to draw when a project is essentially finished, so the project could be going on forever, which makes it a disadvantage. Documentation with the waterfall model is very easy since you know beginning, middle, end, but with spiral you're all over the place, so you're always just creating documents, which could be an issue. Let's move on to where the spiral would be best suited. Spiral model would be best suited with a large project, since a large project large projects have a higher chance of things changing throughout them, so a spiral model would be great for larger projects. and projects where the requirements are uncertain and always changing. Now let's talk about RUP. RUP's key characteristics are that it's iterative as well. It is user-driven and focused, which means that the requirements or wants of the user are very important. It's a low risk since there's an emphasis on the early stages. And the 4 stages that are the most common in RUP are inception, elaboration, construction, and transition. Inception and elaboration are essentially 2 stages that are looking at gathering what the user wants, gathering what the risks are of the project, gathering so it's essentially 2 out of the 4 are an emphasis on the preparation for the project. This project is also iterative, so you loop. Some of the strengths are that you will achieve high quality results due to the fact that the needs of the user are being prioritized and that risk is being prioritized, so you're going to get a robust product. It's also good for projects where the user input is important. For example, if you had some product where the user isn't so much the user isn't a huge priority, where it's just a smaller, it's I guess a lower level product, this wouldn't be as good, I guess. And it's good at minimizing risk. So a product where security is an importance, this would be a good model to use. It could be very long and complex. So let's talk about the disadvantages now. It'd be very long and complex since half of the project is literally documenting and preparing. So that could go on forever, which could cause issues. Project setup takes a while, so if you need functionality quickly, that could cause issues. Takes longer to see implementation is also part of that, where it takes just longer to actually get people started and working. So if you have coders who aren't really designers, you're going to have them sitting around doing nothing for a bit, especially if you iterate a second time through. RUP is best suited for large and complex projects, and for projects where having security is a huge importance. Now let's talk about the agile process and some of its key characteristics. Agile process is essentially like an overarching umbrella, and some of these actually fall under the agile process. An agile process has an emphasis on flexibility, has an emphasis on collaboration and communication with each other. There's consistent development and improving. An example of an agile process is Scrum, which is one that we've been using, where we essentially divide tasks among a team and the team follows through on the tasks and implements them or designs. Some of the strengths are that allow for flexibility, like some of our other models that we've talked about. There's functionality given to the project early on, which allows for early access to functionality. If you need functionality quickly, an agile process could be helpful. It also lets the user give their opinion in order to improve the product and tailor it towards the user. Some of the disadvantages of the agile process are that it's hard to predict when a product is finished. It also requires collaboration. So if you have a ton of people who aren't good at teamwork, the agile process might be difficult. If the communication is done properly, people might be working on different things and there could be clashes, and it could actually end up taking longer than what it would take if you did something like a waterfall model or the RUP model. Large teams could be an issue for the agile process when you have a lot of people. So smaller groups is probably best. An agile process is best suited for large, unpredictable projects. If it's a large project and you have a small amount of workers, an agile process would be good because it lets you work consistently and flex and the things you can't really foresee sometimes with large projects. The agile process allows you to improvise and fix those. Also, where customer input is a priority, since agile is very flexible, and so if a customer changes their mind on a functionality, you could do so. In projects that need early functionality, an agile process lets you release the product incrementally, which is also a huge strength of the agile process. That concludes my comparison of these 4 models that I chose. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.